Okay, flashback. It's 2001 and you drag your parents to GameStop first thing in the morning to finally pick up the thing that'll shape your identity for the next 20 years, the Nintendo GameCube. You've been waiting for this moment for months. Your dad whips out his magical card, but when it's finally time to pick out games, you see this. Some of the absolute best Nintendo games of all time came out for this console, but on launch, your choices were pretty depressing. Except for one. I personally love Luigi's Mansion. I would run through that game at least once a year as a kid, going crazy turning the building upside down trying to get an A-rank mansion. It was one of my first GameCube games, and that made it something truly extraordinary. A unique and unsettling atmosphere, incredible sound design, exciting gameplay, it had Mr. Lugs, and even with the GameCube's relatively embarrassing sales compared to other consoles at the time, this game managed to sell more copies in its opening week than Super Mario 64. Which didn't last long, but it's still cool. Bottom line, the team that made Luigi's Mansion deserves a raise and a kiss on the lips, because despite all of the factors working against it, the game continues to stand out 20 years after release. So, what did Nintendo decide to do when they finally began development on its long-awaited 3DS sequel? Fuck it up! Almost everything that made the original so endearing was completely thrown in the trash with Dark Moon. The spooky ambience, the interconnected environment, the storytelling and pacing. And then, these clown people had the danglers to release this game not once, but twice. I'm for sure a Luigi's Mansion 2 hater, but just like when I spend time learning about other cultures, I enjoy educating myself about something new so I can make fun of it more accurately. And this is why I spent 63 hours of my life doing everything there is to do in this repulsive game. So let's get into it. The story picks up at EGAD's lab, and right off the bat I'm thinking, ghosts are supposed to be spooky, malicious beings. So why are they doing manual labor and scientific calculations for this crazy old white man? Like, why do these ghosts know how to read? Then, we pan to a mysterious moon-shaped rock, which immediately gets blasted by a laser beam shot from the jewel of King Boo's crown. And now I'm thinking, I remember tossing this guy in the portrificationizer literally just last year. So how is he out here now? This is never explained. The rock shatters into 6 fragments, which scatter across the world below and break EGAD's control over his pet ghosts, causing them to go bananas and make a real ruckus in his lab. Why are you employing evil ghosts in your lab, Elvin? Have you never watched Scooby-Doo? There's only one hero who can save the day. Luigi, the baddest motherfucker in Evershade Valley, armed with an upgraded vacuum cleaner, a flashlight, and a Nintendo DS, so he can play better video games like Pokemon. His mission? To collect the 5 remaining fragments of the Dark Moon, clear out the ominous fog plaguing the valley, and restore peace to the entire world. Probably. This premise is stupid! Why is King Boo free from his painting with no explanation at all? What happened to the other portrait ghosts? What even is the Dark Moon? Shifting gears here, Luigi explores 5 unique environments, catching ghosts and looting cash, slowly uncovering the truth about who is behind the sinister plot and the kidnapping of his older brother. A set of towers held together by a giant tree, an abandoned clockworks built on an ancient archaeological site, a small shack hiding a complex system of mines below. A carefully trained eye will notice that this game takes a completely different approach to the original, sacrificing one cohesive setting for a network of smaller, more compact and distinct areas instead. And I honestly think that this was one of the dumbest decisions Nintendo could have made for a sequel to Luigi's Mansion. Stop! I understand the desire to do something fresh and new. Okay, lady, but I really think that the most appealing thing about the original was the incredible atmosphere it was able to develop. Luigi reluctantly ventures through an expansive labyrinth of rooms, dull and colorless, humming along to an eerie tune. They just nailed the design here. The wacky, whimsical ghosts messing around in this dim, malicious setting, the way each area builds off of one another to create the sense of wondrousness when you discover something new in a previously explored place. It was so exciting. I hate the colorful and cartoony presentation of LM2. It just doesn't feel like a sequel to me. Compared to the suspenseful yet playful contrast of the original, it feels so uninteresting and generic, like I'm in an episode of The Backyardigans. There was no intrigue in the lore or villains, no investment in the world or its history. The music was cool, but anytime I accidentally get pulled into the game and start having fun with a mission, here comes Elvin Gad calling me in my goddamn DS 10,000 times in a row. On a positive note, I love how this game maintains Luigi's expressiveness as a character. Watching his facial expressions in reaction to EGAD's outrageous mission assignments always put a big smile on my face. I've always just vibed hard with Luigi being this reluctant hero that just wants to be home farming cookies and milk, but does it anyway. The art design overall is exceptional. Back when it was released on a handheld console 11 years ago. More negatives. I know nothing about game design, and I mean absolutely nothing. But what I do know is that the word remake is given a pretty fucking loose definition in the video game industry. A remake, at the very least, requires something to be remade, something new. At the very minimum, they promised graphical improvements. They promised. I, like you, am so tired of the lazy remakes and remasters patting themselves on the back like a white woman named Susan who tells minorities she understands the challenges they face. Seriously, Luigi's Mansion 2 HD? More like poo-pee, because I could not find a single change made in the $60 Switch release. Oh, they gave Luigi's overall some fabric textures? Oh wow, it's ridiculous. The story, in my opinion, is really bad. But the good news is that the gameplay is also pretty bad too. Each mansion is broken up into multiple mission-based levels that focus on an individual objective, like accessing a certain room or retrieving one of EGAD's minions. At the end of each mission, you're scored on factors like completion time and money collected before getting assigned a rank and being booted back to the lab to slowly move the story forward. I am not in preschool, so this kind of gameplay loop made the overall experience so much less memorable for me. The mission system is like the TikTok of video games. You don't want your audience to dissociate away through a single cohesive story because of a quickly declining generational attention span, so you just dumb everything down to short, mindless scraps, taking away so much immersion and pacing in the process. It's actually a well-known game development technique called cockdicking. I sat through this game for days, grinding out the same missions multiple times to get the best rank, and I still can hardly remember any of them. It makes for a bland design, where a mission ends and the first thing I do is pull out my phone while mashing the A button. However, despite my clowning on LM2, there are good points as well. Most notably, the combat in this game is actually pretty sick, vastly improved since the original, so I gotta give it some love. The process of sucking ghosts is much smoother and more responsive, and they even included a new ability to zap ghosts once you fill up a meter to deal a chunk of extra damage. The flashlight is assigned to an actual button now, which can also be charged to increase the range, kinda like a baby flashbang, making it so much easier to capture multiple ghosts at once. I really like how you can upgrade the Poltergust 5000 too, giving Luigi an actual method of progression and removing some of the tedium in redoing older missions if you're going for a full 3-star rank profile. Finally, thank God, they brought in the big guns and actually fixed the downright atrocious camera from the GCN, beefing it up to actually work. Darklight was kinda lame though. I'd also like to give a personal shout out to the new ghosts introduced in this game. I really like how they each have unique attributes and can pick up weapons to change how you have to approach each fight. We're not getting too deep or anything, but it adds a little bit of distinctness to the just awful levels. That being said, are you out of your mind with these bosses? When I first fought the spider boss as a kid, I was like, okay, this is pretty OP. I love boss battles that are also puzzles. Super cool. But when I fought the Possessor for a fucking 5th time with essentially the same exact moveset every time, I got a bit depressed. There were some really cool concepts, the mine boss and the giant knight, but why not make the ghost itself unique? I don't understand this one. But the absolute worst part of the game, for me at least, was the scare scraper. I'd honestly rather give a dude a handjob with my mouth than have to play this godforsaken mode ever again. 4 players can come together to ascend a randomly generated network of floors tied together by one of 3 objectives. Hunter, where you capture all ghosts on the floor, Rush, where you race to find a switch to open the door to the next floor, and Polterpup, where you shine a cum light to find and capture these cute ghost doggies. If you're just fooling around with some of your friends in a Discord call, I'm kind of exaggerating. It's not that bad, and can even be kind of fun, but it's such an empty, nothing mode designed just to extend playtime. If you're trying to 100% this game, Scarescraper will make your eyeballs bleed. So 100%ing Luigi's Mansion 2 HD is kinda like living the lifestyle of a gym bro. You don't eat brown rice and literal cat food to be happy or improve your overall health. You do it to feel a sense of discipline and achievement missing from your everyday life. Completing this game can effectively be summarized by collecting a total of 3 EGAD medals, which will be reflected on your main profile. The first medal is easy peasy, and comes from finishing the main story and stomping King Boo. Playing through the base game is more boring than anything else, at least for me specifically. The missions were interesting at first, but really started to blur together the deeper I got into the narrative, kinda like my senior year of college. Medal number 2 requires you to achieve a 3-star rank on every mission in the game, which is actually a huge pain in the balls. Rankings are based on a combination of clear time, ghosts captured, health lost, and treasure collected, working in tandem to assign each run a particular score. This forces you to play each mission both cautiously and fast, memorizing where all the ghosts and main sources of treasure are located. The first 2 mansions aren't much of an issue, but as you get further into the late game, each mission starts to take more than 10 minutes to complete, so it gets to a point where getting hit a couple times or missing one source of treasure will tank your entire run, making you have to restart like a fool. This secret mine level in particular took me like 4 2-star runs until I finally got a 3, and I was just about ready to eat my entire controller if the 5th run wasn't the one. Finally, the last medal is obtained by completing EGAD's vault. This is an evil requirement. There are 23 ghosts to collect throughout Evershade Valley, which, by the way, is kind of a stupid thing to say out loud because there are really only like 9 actually unique types. 65 gems to collect split into 13 sets for each mansion you explore, 5 Poltergust upgrades to unlock which require a total of 20,000 G, and 32 boos to capture by trolling around each mansion with your dark light buzzing like a bee. Unlocking all 13 gems in a set also rewards you with a cool crystal statue of Luigi, decorated with that particular gem type at the bottom. With that out of the way, I hated this process. First of all, gems are randomly assigned to each individual mission, as opposed to specific locations within the mansion itself, and there are no indicators of how many are accessible per mission without using a guide. Was gem number 5 located in mission 2 or mission 3? I don't know. Fuck you. If you miss a gem or a boo, you'll have to play through the entire mission again to secure it, which again gets to be so tedious when the missions start to take 12 plus minutes to complete. But the worst part of this entire thing is the fact that you're forced to play the Scarescraper in order to 100% this game. This mode alone tripled the amount of time I had to play this miserable game. It kind of felt like joining a cult, where you're like 4 goat sacrifices deep and you're starting to feel something off, but you power through anyways. There are a total of 48 Scarescraper boss ghosts you'll need to capture in order to complete EGAD's vault, with a single encounter taking place every 5 floors throughout each mode. Luckily, these are all randomly generated, so you'll never know which one you get until you reach that floor. Why? There is, however, some logic to this process. First of all, the boss at the top of any given scraper will always be the brain. It took me 4 encounters to figure that one out. Otherwise, each boss floor is completely random. Kinda. You can only encounter 1 boss ghost type per scraper, which means if you get a big eye on floor 5, you're guaranteed one of the other 7 for the rest. And although for the most part the encounters truly are random, there are some mechanics in place to increase the likelihood of a new ghost appearing throughout your runs. This takes into account all players in a group though, so the optimal strategy I found was to play Polterpup mode with an online team until you get all but like 10ish, and then grind that or rush on your own for the last few so you're not getting other people's missing ghosts. This was honestly rough. I thought I'd just say fuck it and skip it just because of how unendingly tedious this process was, but the sight of other players having all 3 medals compared to my measly 2 pulled me right back in every time. It became an obsession, like the Luigi's Mansion equivalent to being addicted to gambling, but without the potential to become a trillionaire. It took an outrageous amount of time just to find a good match, and then you'll get stuck with players like this. So I recommend, if you're a normal person, get a medal or 2 and call it a day. I don't think this is a game that needed to be remade. I can't feel any passion from the developers. It just feels like more riffraff being made just to buy time until the next console. So here are my thoughts. This is a wait for the sale kind of game if you really enjoy the 3DS original. Otherwise, it's gonna make you angry or sad like it did for me. But even though I really didn't enjoy Luigi's Mansion 2, I do think playing games you don't love can still have value. Experiencing things you don't necessarily vibe with can help you develop a deeper appreciation for the things that you do, and I do think that refining your taste this way can help you find even more games that you'll love in the future, which I feel that this game did for me. Despite all the trash that I talk about it, there are definitely things I appreciate, so if you have nothing else to play, maybe give it a shot.